In this demonstrative session, I'll be discussing the concepts that you're going to come across in your course, and I'll try to briefly give you an idea of how these concepts will be like and what are the topics that you are going to learn as part of this particular course. Myself, Karthik, I have somewhere around 3 years of experience in the domain of cybersecurity. So I've taught few batches of CEH as well as CSP, which is very own course of Hacker School. And I'll be the trainer for your entire course. So that is all about me. Coming to the course, you'll be having a total of 20 modules starting from introduction, and we'll conclude this course with cryptography. So in this particular demonstrative session, I'll go through each and every module and I'll give you a brief understanding of what are the topics that you'll be facing if you choose to attend this course. Without any further ado, let's dive into the individual concepts. So in the very first module, we have Introduction to Ethical Hacking. Before I jump on into the individual topics within this module, I want to ask a general question to the attendees of today's demonstrative session. So we might be hearing this term quite often called hacking. So can anyone of the attendees tell me what hacking is? So I'm not asking for any textbook definitions from your side. All I'm asking is your understanding of hacking. So anyone can answer it. You can use the chat option or you can use your mic in order to express yourself. General idea. Gaining access. Okay. What else? Threat to a system. Okay. So these are all kind of components in hacking. Can anyone tell me what is the basic idea of hacking? So one attendee told me that gaining access. So that is yes, to in an unauthorized way, right? Yes. So that's correct. So ethical hacking or hacking in basic essence means gaining unauthorized access to someone else's system or someone else's resources without a proper authorization from that particular candidate. Okay. So again, that is basic hacking. So what is ethical hacking? Again, a question for you attendees, offline and online. What is ethical hacking? As the name itself suggests, you can just give it a guess. Legal? Yeah, obviously. Yeah, exactly, in a legal way. So you people, if you choose to attend this course and if you pursue your career as a pen tester, you will be called as ethical hackers. So you'll be having some written consent from the authorities to perform the same thing that you have learned in a legal way. Okay, so that is considered as ethical hacking. So in this particular module, we'll be talking about the basic theoretical part regarding hacking. So what is hacking? What are the common terminologies in hacking? So we'll be coming across terminologies like vulnerability, risk, right? Payloads, what else? Exploits. So these terminologies we'll be talking about as part of this module itself. Then we'll be discussing one important thing called CIA triad. So this is pretty much common when it comes to information security. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we'll be discussing these three individual topics and we'll be correlating them and understand what is the importance of these three things in an organization to safeguard the information, right? After that, I'll be walking you through stages of hacking. So can someone tell me what is the stages of preparing a Maggie? No? People online? It's fine. It doesn't have to be a right process. So first we'll buy the packet. Okay. So boil water and put that masala in it. And then again, we'll put the Maggie in it. We'll let it boil for a few minutes. So that is the basic idea, right? Again, some people will cut veggies and all. That is up to their personal choice. right? So similarly, just like how we prepare Maggie in a step-by-step manner, we'll be having different stages of how we perform hacking, right? Yes, 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 exactly. So those things will be covered again in individual modules, but we'll have a basic understanding in the introduction to ethical hacking module. Then again, once we are done with the theoretical part, so module number one is mostly theory, almost I'd say 90% theory. Once we are done with the 90% part of the theory, we'll jump with lab setup, right? So here I have my VirtualBox manager, as you can see on the screen. And the things that I have on my left hand side are nothing but the virtual machines. Okay. Since we can't buy a different device for each and every operating system that we want to use, we'll be using something like VirtualBox. Okay. To simulate, or we can say to share our resources among multiple machines. Again, more on VirtualBox in the session. So here, as you can see, I have my Kali and I have my Metasploitable 2. This is going to be our target machine for this course, and this is our parrot security. And if I double tap on this, so this is my Kali operating system. Again, these files are something that I have created. You will get a fresh one if you are going with installation. So I'll walk you through the installation process of both Kali as well as Parrot. Again, many of you will be getting doubt which one to use. So there is absolutely no difference between Kali and Parrot except the touch and feel of it. So if you use an Oppo phone, if you use a Vivo phone, there is no difference, right? So the operating system Android is same. Okay. So here we have the same things that we have in Parrot. Remember this one, the terminal. This is where we are going to execute our commands. Okay. So in this module, first, once we are done with lab setup, I'll walk you through Linux basics. So Linux basics are something that you actually require in order to move yourself or conduct yourself in a smooth way throughout this course. So first, keeping in mind other attendees, I mean, few of you might already be familiar with these commands and all, but most of the attendees who will attend CH course are mostly beginners. So keeping all of you in mind, we'll start with basics. We'll inculcate all those commands into you. We'll make you habituated to those commands. Once we are done with the command section, for example, I'll just type a simple command called ls. It will display all the files that I have in this location. So it is just like a directory. Okay. So like that, basic commands will be discussed as part of module number one. And finally, we'll move on to the really important topic, anonymizing ourselves. Okay. So anonymizing, voice is not getting. So is everyone not able to hear my voice, or is it only one attendee? Okay. I might suggest that just exit the session and rejoin once again. Maybe that could fix your issue. Also check the device volume in your mobile phone or the laptop that you're attending from. Also, don't worry, the recorded session will be given to you. If you miss some part of it, you can come back again and revisit it, and you can watch the part that you missed. Don't worry about it. All right, rest of you, I hope you can hear my voice. Can I continue? So as I was talking, anonymizing ourselves. So we are hackers. So mostly in this course, the perspective that I want you to hold is we'll learn both ethical techniques and unethical techniques. Okay. If only I know, if let's say there is a killer who is coming to kill me. Okay. If only I know how he or she is going to attempt on me, I can protect myself, right? So we need to be aware on how the real hackers does it so that we can safeguard our organization's resources. So first we'll see how we can anonymize ourselves online. So whenever I'm browsing internet, I don't want everyone or anyone who is sitting in between me and the server that I'm trying to visit to sniff it. Okay. Even if they try to do so, I don't want to leak out my information. I don't want to leak out my IP address. Okay, consider that I am performing some attack on some person online. Okay, or organization, right? Let's say that organization is properly equipped with all the monitoring software. Okay, now I have performed the attack. Then again, in the research process, or let's say in the hunting process, they came to know that so and so IP address has performed the attack. Okay, so consider this situation where the person who is attacking here is not anonymizing themselves. That means they are not spoofing their IP address. So it is really easy for the law enforcement to catch you. Whereas in this module, I'll show you how to spoof your IP address using different techniques, proxies, VPNs, also VPS. Okay. So let me give you a simple example here. I don't know if you are aware of this browser. So this is a first tab for me. Now proxy is turned off. I'll ask for what is my IP. Okay, so this one is not showing a proper result regarding location. Let me go to another site. Right? So this is my IP address, public IP address. Location is in Telangana, Hyderabad, right? So zip code, time zone, and also internet service provider details, Bharti Airtel. Okay. Now, again, in a fresh tab, I'll do the same query, but this time I'll turn on my encryption proxy, and again I'll do the same search. All right, let me click on the very first thing itself. Now I'm in Canada, Ontario region, right? So my IP address also got changed. Okay, so this is a small technique that I have used to demonstrate it to you. But in the class, we'll be looking at different other techniques through which we can do the same. Yes. Change my browser. I will be open not the same, right? Yes, yes. Maybe this browser, that particular browser is yes, yes, yes. So that is just the browser specific application related, you can say. Whereas if you use a VPN, so it will be for entire system, right? Okay. All right. So with that, we'll conclude module number 1. If there are any doubts from your side, please let me know. You are free to use the chat option, or you can use the mic option that is provided to you in order to get your queries clarified. And offline, you can directly ask me questions if you have. Yeah, that will be discussing in the class, because if I go into each and every, I have only put a few topics here on the slide. So these are not the only things that we are going to discuss in the class. So it's just an idea for the attendees to read. That's it. So AI will be using it for multitude of purposes, not a single one. So starting from building the commands to building exploits, so different things. So I'll discuss those things as well in the class, right? So is there anything else related to module number 1? I got a question, but I'd like to answer it in the end so that others will not get mixed up. Anything else related to module number 1? Please let me know. Questions, people online. So if there are no questions, please type 1 in the chat. Yes, someone turned on their mic. Is there any doubt? All right then. I think no doubts from your side. All right, let us move on to module number 2, footprinting and reconnaissance. So as earlier I talked about stages of hacking. Okay, so the very first stage of hacking is collecting information from our target. So that is nothing but footprinting and reconnaissance. So in this module, again, we'll go through a little bit of theory first. So what are different types of footprinting? Active and passive. So active and passive techniques, what are they? Again, we'll be using some tools in order to perform both active footprinting as well as passive footprinting, right? So let me give you an example here. I'll use Parrot Security sometimes, I'll use Kali sometimes, don't worry about it. The commands that I'm typing here will be the same, both in Parrot as well as Kali. So let's say I'm targeting our own organization. So now I'll be using LinkedIn as my source. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to gather some information, LinkedIn IDs of employees that have hacker school somewhere in their profile. Okay. So Google is blocking your IP, right? It's fine. Let us wait some time. Probably these kinds of attacks are better off if we do using our VPN. Okay. So it's fine. Let me put that away for now. Few more techniques that we will be covering, or few more tools that we'll be covering is one thing is the harvester. The other one that we are going to use is Google hacking techniques. For example, let me go here, google.com. So here, let's say I will do some queries. Okay. So I'll just say jobs TCS, right? So what I am getting here, I'm getting TCS careers. Okay, it is related to TCS because as you can see here, it is from www.tcs.com, right? Other ones I'm getting from Naukri, right? I'm getting from LinkedIn, Naukri, Indeed. So these are not something that I actually want. These could be advertisements or some phishing pages. Okay, let's say I only want from only links that are related to TCS. So I'll just use a simple query here. Let's see. Somewhere in this particular link, you'll be having tcs.com, 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 right? So like that, using different techniques, this is called as a simple query, Google hacking. We'll call it Google hacking or Google dorking. So this is just a Google filter, just like how you go to your Amazon or Flipkart account, you will apply filters. Let's say you are searching for shoes. Okay, so you'll be putting in your size, your color option or mesh type, etc., right? So those are filters. Just like that, we'll be applying different filters in the Google in order to shorten the links that we are going to get. Okay, so like this, using different filters, we'll be shorting our queries and we'll be coming across the exact links that we actually want instead of getting unnecessary results, right? So with this technique also, we will be able to gather some information. Okay, so with that thing out of picture, we'll be discussing about shodan.io. So this is a very famous search engine among hackers. So let's say you are searching, you have an exploit. Okay, again, don't worry what is an exploit. We'll discuss that later. Let's say you have an exploit which is totally focused on Windows 10 machines. Now you want targets, real world targets, not your friend or your neighbor. You want real world targets. Now you'll come to this Shodan and you'll be searching for Windows 10. Right? Can you see the targets in front of you? You got an IP address. If I click on one of these random IP addresses, you'll be getting more information regarding the target. So the ports that are open, again, don't worry about ports. We'll discuss regarding them later. Now you can see some information. So it is a Windows 10 operating system, right? So you got ISP related details, some extra information regarding that particular machine. So what are the ports that are open? What are the services that are running on those ports, right? So sometimes if you are lucky enough, you'll get an exploitable port here as well as some credentials as well. So these information that you are able to see in this particular search query are posted by none other than the hacking community members itself. Okay, so anyone, let's say you can also contribute to this website. Okay, if you have an account in this, okay, let's say you actually observed there is some vulnerability in some machine. Okay, now you compromised it, you gathered all the information that you want. Now you don't want to leave it that way. You want the members of your community to take advantage of it as well. Now you'll post it here. So like that, you'll gather some information, you'll post it over here. So if they are not actually checking those things and not fixing themselves, they'll still be vulnerable. But this time, millions of other people can also do the same thing that you have done. Okay, so as an ethical hacker, we'll come across these websites just to make sure our organization related machines are not there in this list. Okay. So apart from that, we'll be performing something called IP tracing. So we'll be creating some links. Okay, I'll share those links with anyone I want. If they click on that link, a few things I'll be gathering from that is their geographic location. I mean, not exactly, but not a pinpoint location also. Let's say if the person who is clicking on that link is sitting in Vijayawada or Bangalore, so I'll get to know that. The other one is I'll get their IP address for sure. The other one is their device information. Okay, from which device they are using it. Is it an Android device? If Android device, what version of Android they are using? Okay, what sort of internet connection they are using? They are using Geo, they are using Airtel. So like that. So these are the few techniques, and more techniques will be covered as part of this particular module in order to gather information. And one more thing that I forgot to mention here is Internet's time machine. Internet archive. So using this particular website, we'll be seeing how a certain website or a given website looked like earlier. Okay, earlier in the sense, maybe in 2009, maybe some website has been launched. Since then, maybe some modifications are done to the website. Some information may be added, some information may be removed. So using this particular Wayback Machine, we can browse such information, and we'll be able to gather that information as well. Okay. So with few more techniques that we are going to cover in the class, done, and all the techniques covered, we'll be moving on to the next module, which is module number 3, scanning networks. So before I jump on to this module, I want to know from your side whether there are any doubts regarding module number 2. People online and offline, you can express your doubts. So earlier, one attendee told me that they can't hear my voice. Is it fixed? All right. If there are no doubts from your side, can you type 1 in the chat so that I can continue? Thank you for the confirmation. So the module number 3, scanning networks. Basically, if I say scanning, there will be 3 things that we are going to do. One is live host identification scan. The next one is identifying the open ports. And the last technique is identifying vulnerabilities. Okay. But as part of this module, we'll be doing the first two things. One is live host identification scan, and the other one is port scanning. Okay. So when I say live host identification scan, let's say you are in a coffee shop. Okay, you're done with this course. You are in a coffee shop. Now you want to know what are the IP addresses or the machines that are connected to that particular Wi-Fi. So mostly in coffee shops or restaurants, we'll be having an open Wi-Fi. Okay, or maybe there is a password which everyone knows. Okay, so in this situation, you want to choose your target. So in such cases, we'll be performing live host identification scan. So let me show you a simple technique here. So this is a graphical utility, whereas I'll be teaching you terminal based utilities also. Okay. So now don't worry about these options. These are private IP addresses. I'll just click on start. This particular utility is smart enough to identify my network range. Okay. Now, as the scan is proceeding, you can see some IP addresses on the screen. Let's wait for it to complete the scan. Are you connected to this Wi-Fi? Then, right? So you have to be connected to a certain Wi-Fi in order for this results to be displaying your IP address. Okay. So you can see the summary. So this particular range is being scanned and 7 live hosts are being identified. Now, this is the very first step that we are going to do. Okay, in scanning networks. First, we will be identifying the IP address and then we'll be proceeding with the next step. So let's say I got 133, 137. These are my targets. So any of these things could be my target. Okay. So it doesn't mean that since the IP address is being displayed here, it is vulnerable. So vulnerability is a different thing. Okay. Right. Now I have identified my targets. Now I'll proceed with the next thing, that is port scanning. Again, for this live host identification, I just showed you one technique using Angry IP scanner. In the class, I'll show you the same thing using ARP, ping, fping, nmap, etc. Now, nmap, I think many of you might be familiar. It is a very common tool when it comes to scanning and also a really famous one. So earlier I have identified 133 as my target, one of the target. So let me target the same IP address using nmap. Right? So nmap followed by IP address. It's a simple technique using nmap. Whereas if I just go to the menu of nmap, there are so many options that you can use from. So again, I'm not gonna bore you with all these options in this demonstrative session. So I'll just show you a basic technique. Done. Scan is done within milliseconds, and these are the open ports that are there on that particular machine. So earlier I told you that I have a machine called Metasploitable 2. So this is nothing but that machine. So these are all the ports that are open on that particular machine. Again, don't worry about ports, these numbers, these services and all. We'll discuss one by one in the session itself. Right? So now, first thing that I have done is identify whether this particular thing is live or not. Consider this as your friend's mobile device. You're calling that mobile device. If it is ringing, it means that it is not switched off. Okay. So whether they answer it or not is a different thing. You're calling it and it is ringing. That means it is turned on. So similarly, I have performed a scan. It replied to me. That means it is live. It is not shut down. Okay. Next thing that I have done is once I came to know it is live, I have performed something called port scan, identifying different ports. So again, we'll discuss more about these things later. So basically in this module, we'll be identifying the live hosts using different techniques, and we'll be identifying different ports again using multiple techniques. Once we are done with that, once we have a clear understanding of all these things, we'll move on to the next module, enumeration. Okay, enumeration. In this module, we'll be doing the same things that we have done in footprinting, but more in a more personalized way. Okay, in footprinting, what we have done is we took advantage of search engines, we took advantage of open information that is available on the internet. Okay, whereas in enumeration, we'll actively connect to the target. Okay, actively connecting in the sense earlier you have identified live hosts, you have identified ports. So ports are nothing but services. You will try to connect to those services itself. For example, here you identified FTP. Okay, here you identified that there is a open FTP service. Now you'll try to connect to that FTP service. Okay, so for every server device, there will be a client. Okay, without client, there is no server. Without server, there is no client. So to connect to FTP, okay, now it is asking for a username. Okay, let's say I'll enter some random username. Okay, let's say random only. It is asking for a password. Okay, I don't know what is the username, what is the password. Maybe I can guess. So that is first approach that we are going to take in any scenario. If we don't know anything, we'll guess. We'll try to guess. So that is what hackers will do as well. First, they will guess. They'll try to guess. If they are unable to do so, then they'll proceed to other techniques. So one such thing is creating word lists. Okay. Now there is a service. I want to connect to that service, but it is asking for some credentials. I don't know the credentials, but I have done footprinting. Okay. So let's say my target organization is Hacker School. I have done footprinting. Okay. I know the names of employees. Okay. I know the personal details of the employees. Okay. If there is some management staff, or let's say there is an administrator who is actually setting these passwords and all. Okay. Usually, since this is a training institute, what sort of passwords could be there? Relating to hacker, right? Hacker at the rate 123, right? Hacker 123. So something like that. So based on that, I'll create a word list. So word list will look something like this. Something like this. A list of possible usernames and possible passwords. So I'll be creating those things and I'll be performing something called brute forcing. So I'll just exit out of this. So for creating these word lists, we have again bunch of tools. Crunch. So this is one tool. Again, similar to Crunch, we have two more tools called Cup and Cure. So we'll be discussing those things in the class. So using these tools, we'll be creating word lists. Once we are done with creation of word lists, we'll go ahead and we'll perform the attacks, brute force attacks. So brute force attacks are nothing but here you have an image. If you observe, there is a username and password field, just like your FTP prompt. It is asking for a username and a password. I don't know username and password. What I'll do, I'll enter admin, 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 admin 123, admin 456, something like that. But as a human being, we have a limit. We can't perform the same thing in a repeated fashion for multiple times. For that reason, we'll use tools like Hydra. So it is a tool to guess or crack valid login password space. Okay. So again, with a Hydra, you will be having multiple options. -P to specify password file, U to specify username file, something like that. Also, Medusa. So this is one another utility through which you can perform brute forcing. Okay. So with these things, we'll wrap up this enumeration module. Let's say we have the word list, we have the brute forcing utility, and we have performed the brute force on that FTP. And now we came to know the right username and the right password. With that, we'll try to once again log into that FTP service, and whatever the information that is there in that service, we'll be grabbing that. Maybe that information could be juicy. We don't know. So usually FTP is used in organizations to share files, okay, to transfer files, file transfer protocol. Okay, so maybe in those files there could be usernames, there could be passwords, okay, there could be some other important files, okay, anything could be valuable to a hacker. All we have to do is gather that information, keep it with us until that particular opportunity comes. Okay, all right then. Uh, with that thing said, we are done with module number 4. And before I jump on into module number 5, are there any doubts from your side? I got a doubt here. Sorry to interrupt. Can you provide a question bank for us? So can you elaborate, Mr. Rajesh, what is a question bank? All right. If there are no doubts from your side, please type one in the chat. All right, let's continue. Meanwhile, those who have any doubts, please feel free to type it in the chat. Okay, I'll discuss regarding that in the end of the session, Mr. Rajesh, if that's okay with you. All right, thank you. So module number 5, vulnerability analysis. So in this particular module, earlier, if I don't know if you remember, in the scanning module, I told you that three things: live host identification, port discovery, and the last one is scanning for vulnerabilities. So that thing we'll be doing in this module. Okay. So in this module, first we'll start with vulnerability research. That means knowing about the latest vulnerabilities and keeping up to date information of such things. So for that purpose, we'll be using some famous websites like cvdetails.com, okay, and MITRE. So these are some websites which are open source and are being gone by some authoritative body, which will be dealing with the known vulnerabilities as well as any new vulnerabilities. For example, here you can see the score ratings. So 0 to 1, 1 to 2, like that you'll have until 10. Okay. So usually in our day-to-day lives, we'll be coming across some bugs and all, right? So those bugs are nothing but some vulnerabilities. If those bugs are leaking out some information, a basic information, that is not really considered as a severe one. Whereas, let's say that particular bug is giving out access to someone else, that is considered as a severe one. Okay, so based on the severity, they'll be rating these things. For example, let me click on this one, 9 plus. So 9 plus, you have so many things. So these are latest ones. As you can see, it is updated on 25th. Okay, that is yesterday. So like that, this particular website will contain all the latest information about the vulnerabilities, and an ID will be assigned to each and every vulnerability that is discovered. So CVE 2024, in the sense, it is discovered in 2024, and this is the ID to that. Okay. So by clicking on these things, you'll be able to know more about this particular vulnerability. So as you can see, it is 9.3, a really critical one. Again, here they'll be giving more information regarding that. So it is there in SQL. Okay. So again, we'll come across SQL later on. So this particular vulnerability is there in a SQL command, in SQL injection. So any organization who is actually using SQL database will be concerned about it. They'll know more about it. They'll check whether this particular version of SQL is matching with the one that they are using. If they are using it, they'll try to fix it if there are any patches available. So like that, we'll be knowing about vulnerabilities in advance so that we'll not be a victim to these kind of attacks. So that is vulnerability research. Whereas coming to vulnerability scanning, we'll be actually performing scans using tools like Nessus. So this is a really famous vulnerability scanner, which is actually used in organizations. So in this particular module, I'll show you how to register to this one and use it, install it and use it. Okay. So this is a free one that we are going to use. Nowhere in this course will ask you to buy any software or any hardware device, whereas it is totally up to you whether to purchase it or not. Even if you want to purchase this Nessus, I wouldn't recommend so because the license will cost you crores of rupees. Okay, so that is for the organizations to bear that cost. Whereas we'll be using a free version of Nessus. Okay, and the installation process will take somewhere around half an hour to 1 hour of time. Once we are done with the installation process, I'll show you how to perform scans, right? Once the scans are performed, I'll show you how to take out a report out of it. So we'll be creating two types of reports, even in organizations. So I'll create a similar scenario and I'll show you how to generate those reports and also how to read those reports. Okay. So once we are done, we'll be identifying some vulnerabilities from our research that we have done earlier. So we have identified the devices, we have identified the services, we have performed vulnerability scanning, and we have actually identified the vulnerabilities in those devices, right? So that is what we have done until this point. Once we are done with these vulnerability scanning and performing the reports, I mean, generating the reports, we'll jump on into the actual exploitation process. So whatever we have done until now will not give you any access to their device or their service. Whatever the thing that we are going to do from now on will give us access. Okay. Before I jump on into the individual contents, are there any doubts from your side? Please let me know. All right. If there are no doubts, please type one in the chat. Okay. So as I said earlier, using the information that we have gathered so far in this module, we'll be taking advantage of a very famous framework called Metasploit framework. So this particular framework will contain a list of exploits, payloads, knobs, auxiliaries, etc. So we can, as you can see here, these many number of exploits are available. Okay, so all those CVs that you are seeing on CV details could maybe contains some exploits corresponding to them. So if there are any exploits that are publicly available, so those things will be there in your Metasploit framework. So here we'll be taking advantage of those exploits and we'll be actually compromising those devices using the exploits and payload combinations. Okay, so that is what we are going to do essentially in this particular module. We are going to do those attacks both in LAN level as well as WAN level. LAN level means the devices that are connected to your Wi-Fi. Okay, anything that is not your Wi-Fi, not your network is considered as WAN level. So I'll show you the techniques that you have to use in order to perform both the attacks, and then we'll jump on into a very major thing called privilege escalation. Okay, so if you can see here, I'm logged into my Kali Linux. I'll open a fresh tab. So can you see the username here? I'm logged in as Kali user. Whereas there is one more user in this system. Sorry. Root user. Okay. So this is the main user or the initial user in the system. Similarly, you'll have your account in your Windows PC, whereas there will be one more user called administrator. So if you want to perform few tasks like this, for example, let's say there is this calculator. No, let's say Visual Studio. run as administrator. That means if I am clicking on it normally, I am running it as whatever the user that I have logged in as. Whereas if I want to run it as a privileged user, which is nothing but administrator user in your Windows. So these two users are our ultimate targets, or I can say hackers' ultimate target. So no matter what sort of access they get while compromising your device, they'll be looking to elevate their privileges. So we'll be doing the same thing as part of this module. We'll no matter what access we'll get, we'll take advantage of further vulnerabilities that are there in that particular system, and we'll try to elevate our privileges to root user if it is a Linux device, and to administrator user if it is a Windows device. Okay. And then we'll jump on into the next module, which is nothing but malware threats. Okay. So again, as part of this module, we'll start with the theory. We'll understand what are the different types of malwares, how to create payloads. So earlier we have seen this Metasploit framework, right? MSF console. Okay. So there is one more component of this Metasploit framework, which is MSF Venom. So using this particular component of Metasploit framework, we'll be creating payloads. So payloads in the sense, the malware. Okay. So we'll be creating malwares both for Windows devices as well as Linux devices. Again, while creating these payloads, there are multiple variants: stage payload, non-stage payload, okay, meter payload, shell payload. Okay, so different types of payloads. So based on our understanding and our scenario, I'll show you how we can create different kinds of payloads and what is the actual difference when you use a different kind of payload from the other kind. Okay. So I won't bore you with much stuff in this demonstrative session itself. So let me wrap these things quickly. So persistent backdoors. So again, let's say you have performed all these things. You have sent a malware to your target. They clicked on it and you got an access. So that is what we see in the movies also. Okay. So what if that particular target shuts down their system? There is a chance. What if they shut down their system? What if they delete the file? Even then you want access, right? So that is what makes our job easier. So instead of us doing all these things again from the start, what if we make it persistent? So that is what we are going to do in this particular module. We'll make our malware persistent. That means even if the target deletes the file, restarts their computer or shuts down their computer and opens it 10 days later, 20 days later, even then we'll see how we can get a reverse connection without user input. Okay. Again, we'll take advantage of Metasploit framework for the same task. Okay. And finally, we'll wrap this module in looking into, we'll wrap this module by showing you how we can identify the malwares. So in our day-to-day life, we'll be getting PDF files or Excel sheets or some other files via different mediums, be it your emails or be it your WhatsApp, etc. So we'll just click on those things without actually verifying whether they are really genuine ones or whether they are really good ones or not. Okay. So as hackers, if you are going to take up this course, one thing that should differentiate us from the rest of the people who doesn't have any idea regarding these attacks is being aware. Okay. So awareness is a best one that we can implement in order to safeguard ourselves. Okay. So I'll show you how to identify these malwares using VirusTotal. So we'll use this website. Also, I'll create different kinds of payloads and we'll upload those payloads to this particular site and we'll see how it is responding. Also, we'll try to, cover that particular exploit. That means if you are creating a malware, so normally a malware is detectable. So we'll make sure or we'll try to make it undetectable. So that is what we are going to do as part of this particular course. This particular module. So with that thing said, we'll move on to module number 8, sniffing. So before I jump on into the contents of sniffing, from your side, if there are any doubts, Please let me know. If there are no doubts, please type one in the chat. All right. So in this module, we'll be introducing you to a very important utility called Wireshark. Right? This is the basic interface of Wireshark, and again, don't worry about all these options. Just observe what is happening. I'm not doing anything. Even my browser is closed. Not closed. Now it is closed. Even then, I'm able to see some packets. So few packets are coming, few packets are leaving. Okay, there is traffic, right? Now, this Wireshark utility will be useful for us in order to sniff the traffic. But this traffic is not the traffic that is coming from some other device in this network. So this is purely the traffic that is there, that is originating in my system, and that is coming to my system. Okay. Now, first, we'll introduce you to this utility. We'll show you how you can analyze these packets. So what are these things stand for, and what information they are carrying. And once you get the basic understanding of how to use the Wireshark, then we'll move on into the actual sniffing process, which is one is we'll be performing active sniffing, okay, and the other one is passive sniffing. And then we'll show you a major attack called man in the middle attack, MITM. As you can see in this picture, two people are conversing and someone is sitting in between and listening to their conversation. So a man in the middle, okay, literal definition. Okay, so it's not like we are going to listen to the phone calls. No, we are going to listen to the conversations happening between devices over a network. Okay, so we'll be performing this MITM attack using different tools. One such thing is ARP spoof. Okay, and I'll show you other techniques as well using AtterCap, BetterCap, etc. So don't worry about these terminologies and tools. It's fine. We'll be discussing more about them in the class environment. So once we are done with the man in the middle attack, we'll wrap this module and we'll jump on into the next module, social engineering. This is a really important topic when it comes to this particular course. So people will be very enthusiastic when this course comes up, because in this course, in this particular module, we are not going to compromise any system. I mean, of course, we are going to compromise the system, but we are not going to take advantage of a vulnerability in a system. Whereas we'll be, manipulating the person who is actually using that system. Okay, so hacking the human being is called social engineering. So we'll be discussing so many techniques in social engineering module: how to create phishing emails, how to create phishing pages, how to craft emails. So I'll take advantage of artificial intelligence here in order to craft a convincing message so that someone who is actually reading it will think it is written by a professional. Okay, so like that, we'll be doing some techniques. Also, we'll be looking into things that we should be aware from our part, because most of these attacks will happen by just a click. I mean, if you just click on a link, nothing will happen. If you download it, if you execute it, so that's where the problem arises. Okay, just by clicking on the link, of course, you will be leaking out some information, but that will not be that major. Okay. Okay. So now in this module, our main aim is not to fool someone or to make prank calls and fool them or extract their money. Not all those things. Okay. So our main aim is to be aware of not being a victim to these kind of attacks. Okay. So no matter how many defenses you implement, if a particular person in your organization clicks on a link, download some executable, that's it, done. No amount of defenses can help you. Okay. So training the employees is also a really important thing when it comes to hacking. Okay. Now, Module number 10, denial of service. Yes. So before I jump on into module number 10, are there any doubts from your side? Please type 1 in the chat if there are no doubts. All right. Thank you for the confirmation. So in this module, again, before jumping on to the contents, I want to iterate this thing onto you. Earlier one, man in the middle attack, as well as this denial of service, DOS attack, are strictly prohibited in the organizations. We are nowhere to perform these things in organizations because they are considered as serious attacks. So coming to denial of service, as the name itself suggests, we are denying a service to a genuine user here. Let's say Hacker School's website, or let's say Facebook's server, is able to handle 10,000 requests per second. Of course, it is not the actual number. I'm just making it up. Okay. So let's say they are able to handle 10,000 requests per second, whereas you are sending 20,000 requests per second. So what happens in this case? I mean, you in the sense a hacker. Okay. Now, a genuine user is trying to log into Facebook and use it. So in such case, what happens is until these 20,000 requests are processed, until that time, this particular user will not be able to access the services of Facebook. Okay. Now what we are causing is denial of service. So in this module, I will show you how to perform that particular DOS. Of course, if you are doing it with multiple devices on a single target, it is DDoS, distributed denial of service. And we'll do the same thing using different techniques. We'll be using a basic ping utility to do that. And we'll be using HPing3. I'll be showing you HOIC and LOIC, low orbit ion cannon, high orbit ion cannon. And we'll be using slow loris. Okay. So slow loris is a really famous utility. Let me show you. So instead of sending so many requests, we'll be sending few requests, but in a longer interval gap. Let's say you're talking with someone. Okay. You went to a help desk and you're talking with someone. I mean, the person from the help desk. Now there is a line behind you who is actually waiting. Okay. Once you're done, they'll get their queries clarified. But now you are a slow speaker. You'll say, hi, how are you? Like that. Okay. Don't mind me. Just to give you an idea, what I'm trying to do is explain how this is happening. So in slow loris, what we'll be doing is we'll be transferring our messages in a slow fashion. So based on the backend framework of the software, it will wait for us to complete our message. So until that time, whoever the real user is, they'll have to wait in the background. So that is what we are going to do in this module. Once we are done with all these attacks and demonstration and identifying them, I'll tell you some techniques through which you can safeguard your organization resources, which are nothing but the countermeasures that we can implement. And then we'll wrap up this module and we'll move on to the module number 11, session hijacking. In this module, first we'll understand what is a session, what is a cookie. So again, any idea from people online or offline what a cookie is? I'm not talking about the cookie that you'll find in bakeries. No. Anyone online or offline? What is a cookie? No idea. All right. Let me give you a scenario. Have you ever visited any random website and there they'll ask you few things: accept a cookie, deny cookie, or accept certain preferences. Have you ever seen that? You'll be getting pop-ups in websites. So they'll be so buggy, right? So those cookies are nothing but a piece of information regarding you. So whether you log in, whether you click on a particular link, whether you select a certain page, or whether you are downloading certain content, all these things will be stored inside a cookie. So cookie will hold your preferences. Okay. So in this module, we'll be grabbing those cookies, from a genuine user, and based on that cookies, we'll be performing something called session hijacking. Let's say you logged into Facebook. Okay, I got your cookie details somehow. For example, I have performed man in the middle attack. We both are using the same Wi-Fi, and I have performed man in the middle attack, and I have grabbed your cookie values. Now, if I replace those cookie values in my browser, I can assume your privileges. That means I can log in as you in that particular website. So that is nothing but session hijacking. Of course, this particular attack will not work on Facebook, Gmail, you name it. Any famous websites will not uh, are not that easy to perform session hijacking. Of course, in 2010 or 2011, it could be easier, but now they have implemented more security mechanisms. Okay, so in this particular module, I'll introduce you to two more utilities. One is beef, and the other one is verb soup. So here on the left hand side, that IP addresses that you are seeing are my previous targets. Okay, so we'll be creating a Java hook here, and we'll be sharing it with our targets. If the target clicks on that particular Java hook, we'll be having their browser in our control. I mean, not literally. We can perform some tasks. Okay, so I'll show you that one in this particular module, and also I'll discuss this verb suit with you. Okay, so even session hijacking attack cannot be performed within your organization. So in such case, to demonstrate that in a professional way, we'll be using verb suit. Okay. So one thing I'll show you how a real hacker does, and the other one I'll show you how as a pen tester you will be performing the same thing. Okay. So this is for demonstration purposes only. Okay. So with those things said and discussed, we'll move on to the next module, firewalls, IDS, and honeypots. So in this module, we'll be totally focusing on the defense aspect of this course. So first, we'll start by understanding what are firewalls. And once we are having the basic understanding, we'll jump on into our Kali Linux, and we'll look into a basic firewall that is there in your Kali, which is IP tables. So here you can see input chain, forward chain, and output chain. So I'll show you how to write different rules here inside this firewall. So based on those rules, you can control the traffic, whether you want to allow certain traffic to enter into your machine, or let's say you don't want people to access Facebook in this particular system. So you can write a firewall rule for that. So I don't know if you have observed in your schools or colleges, you are unable to use certain websites. So that is based on firewall rules. It's not like they are doing some magic there. They are writing a rule, something similar to that here in this firewall tables. Okay. So similarly in your Windows, you will have firewall rules. Windows define the firewall, right? So I don't know if you have went to this tab or not earlier. Let me show you. So as you can see here, inbound rules, that means any rule, any traffic that is entering into your system, and outbound rules, right? So these are all the rules that are written inside these categories. So I'll show you both in Windows and Linux how to write these firewall rules, and then we'll learn about IDS, intrusion detection system. So any alerts, any attacks that are happening, this particular piece of software will identify it and will throw an alert in front of us. So again, we'll achieve the same thing using Snot IDS. So this is a host based IDS. So we'll show you how to install this one and also set up this one. And I'll show you how when an attack happens, this particular snot will detect it and display an alert for you. And the last one that we are going to cover in this module is honeypots. So honeypots are like baits that you throw. Okay. So if a hacker is actually trying to compromise your organization resources, these honeypots will stand in front of, I mean, in between you and the hacker. So these will appear to be weak, whereas they're actually not. And hacker will think they are actually weak and try to spend their time and resources on such honeypots. So in this case, two things will happen. One thing is they'll be wasting their time and resources. The other one is you will be able to observe the movements of the hacker. Okay, so you'll be able to grab their information and you will be able to monitor them. So two advantages. And with that thing said, we'll wrap up this module and we'll move on into module number 13, web server, hacking web servers. Okay, so in this module, we'll be looking or we'll be focusing on web related modules. I mean, for module number 13, 14, and 15, we'll be totally focusing on web related attacks. So web server is something which is actually responsible for you to see a web application. So it is hosting that web application. For that reason, you are able to see it. If I visit a random website, let's say hackerschool.in. So if I'm visiting this web application, okay, the one that I'm seeing in front of me is a web application. Whereas for this particular web application to display in this fashion, there is a code that is written. A system will hold that code. Okay, so that system which is holding that web related code is considered as a web server. Okay, so in this particular module, we'll be focusing on web server related attacks. Again, we'll be using Nessus for the scanning purposes. So I'll show you how to perform web server related scans using Nessus once again. Again, we'll create a report and based on the vulnerabilities that are identified in Nessus, we'll be performing the exploitation process. So for the exploitation, again, we'll be taking advantage of Metasploit framework only. Okay, so the same thing that we have used in module number 6. So with that thing said, we'll move on to module number 14, web application hacking. So in this particular module, we'll be focusing on web application related attacks. For example, I'll visit cbit.ac.in. So this is a web application. Now I want to footprint this web application. That means I want to grab some information. Now I'm not going to do any attacks. Okay, so I'll just use or take advantage of some utilities or extensions. For example, here I have an extension, Vapalizer. So with just a single click, I'm able to identify this much of information regarding my target. So it is running on Ubuntu operating system. MySQL database is being utilized here. WordPress and also the version of WordPress 5.8.10. So this is the basic information that I can grab from this web application, right? With using a simple tool. So like that, I'll be demonstrating a bunch of other tools as well, like Dearbuster or Nyctoscan, etc., etc. Also, one more thing that I want to show you is OAS Zap. So earlier we have used Nessus in order to perform automated scans, vulnerability scans for for web servers as well as in the vulnerability scanning module. Whereas for web applications, we'll be doing the same thing using Zap. Of course, you can do the same thing using Nessus as well, but just for a change, just to introduce a new tool to you, I'll be using Zap for the same purpose. Okay. So this Zap is a totally free tool developed by OWASP organization. Okay, so it is completely free to install. I'll show you the installation process as well as the scanning process. Once we are done with that, we'll move on into the common web application attacks that are put forth by OWASP organization. If I search for OWASP top 10, So here, right? So this particular, I don't know if you can see this. So here in the year 2021, this organization have released top 10 vulnerabilities. Okay. The last one before that is in 2017. That means every 4 years they are releasing a new list. Okay. So we'll be discussing all these top 10 vulnerabilities in that particular latest year. And once we are done discussing these things, I'll demonstrate these things as well using DBW application. So we have, since we are not allowed to do these kinds of attacks on a live website, we'll be taking advantage of our Metasploitable 2 device. And as you can see in the left hand side, there are different attacks. So if you want to perform any of these attacks, all you have to do is click on it and you'll get an input field for you through which you can perform your attack. Okay. So using this DBWA, I'll be demonstrating these common attacks related to web applications. Once we are done with that, we'll move on into module number 15, SQL injection. Again, web application server, okay, web application and a database server. So that is where SQL kicks in. If you are entering any username credentials, so those things will be stored in a database server. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be SQL. They can use any database server, whereas SQL is a common one. Okay, so in this particular SQL injection module, I'll be demonstrating two major things. One is bypass authentication attack, and the other one is extracting information. For example, bear with me. I'll perform a simple attack here so that you'll just understand what I'm talking about. So I have this website here. I'll click on sign in. So I don't know username and password. What I'll do is I'll just insert a payload. Okay. So don't worry about the payload again. All right. Let me do this on a HTTPS website. There you go. So earlier I tried this on a HTTP website, whereas it didn't work there. And when I tried the same thing on a HTTPS, which is a more secured version of this website, it worked. I logged in as an administrator user without actually knowing the username and password. So that is nothing but bypassing the authentication. Okay, so that is one thing that I'll demonstrate in this module. And the next one is extracting the information. Okay, so I'll give you how this SQL might look like, the basic idea of it, and then we'll extract the information. Again, this SQL injection method will do it both in a manual fashion as well as automated fashion. Okay, of course, you can use an automated tool always, but once you understand how it is done manually, then it is really easy for you. Okay. So with that thing said, we are done with that module. Are there any doubts from your side before I jump on into the module number 16, Wi-Fi hacking? Sure, we'll be sharing the recorded session with you since you have used your emails to log into or register to this particular session. We'll gather those emails and we'll share this recording with you. Okay. Don't worry about it. The session is being recorded. Yes, yes, yes. So again, those things also will be discussed since one of the attendee has mentioned many username fields will not allow special characters. So that is called input sanitization. So I'm not saying that SQL injection will work 100% on every other website. We'll be searching for such kind of websites which are actually having those kind of vulnerabilities. Okay. So if there is some vulnerability, okay, it doesn't mean that every website that is out there on the internet is having the same vulnerability. Okay. Some person will have greed in them. Some person will have, some other bad quality in them. So it doesn't mean that one bad quality is common with every other human being that is out there, right? So similarly, when it comes to websites or when it comes to devices, the vulnerabilities might vary depending on the services that are being installed in it, the way of implementation, and the misconfigurations. Okay. So I hope that thing is clear from your side. If there are any doubts, please let me know in the chat. All right. If there are no doubts, please type 1 in the chat so that I can continue. Right. Thank you for the confirmation. So for module number 16, we have Wi-Fi hacking. So in this particular module, we'll be totally focusing on hacking wireless environments, your routers. Okay. So in this module, I'll be going across some theoretical part. What are the different Wi-Fi related protocols? WEP, WPA, WPA2. Also, we'll be taking advantage of a Wi-Fi external adapter. Okay. So this thing will look similar, something like this. Just give me a second. Like this. And people online, let me show you. So this is how your Wi-Fi adapter will look like. So it's not like you have to purchase it. I'll show you the attack related thing in the class. So it is totally up to you whether you want to purchase it or not. Also, before coming to this class, I will not recommend you to purchase it on your own, because you can buy any of the random adapters that are available online, but most of them will not work. Okay, there is a certain feature that has to be enabled in that particular adapter in order for it to crack the Wi-Fi's. Of course, you can use it to identify the Wi-Fi ranges and all, but in order to crack those Wi-Fi's, you need to have that particular special feature in it. So come to the class. There I'll show you what sort of adapters to choose from. Then it is up to you whether you want to purchase it or not. Okay. So we'll be taking advantage of an external Wi-Fi adapter, and we'll be performing attacks on all these security related protocols of Wi-Fi. WEP, WPA2, WPA, if WPS feature is enabled, even then how to perform pin-based authentication attack. So I'll demonstrate all these things as part of Wi-Fi hacking. Whereas moving on to mobile applications or mobile platforms. So in this module, we'll be creating payloads using MSF Venom again, and using this particular payload, we'll be binding it to an actual game application. Okay, using Evil Droid. So Evil Droid will help us to build that game application. So we'll bind an actual malware to an genuine game application, and we'll share this particular game application with the target, and the target can play the game as well. Okay, so if they are playing that game thinking that it is a genuine one, we'll be getting a reverse connection. So based on that reverse connection, things we can do are we can dump their messages, we can dump their call logs, and some other valuable information. Okay, so this particular attack used to work really well until 2023. Whereas in this year, most of the mobile applications, of course, if any of the attendees is carrying an older version of Android, I can show that attack. Whereas now most of the devices which are coming are not vulnerable to these kind of attacks. Okay, of course, there are softwares out there on the internet and out there on the dark web, okay, through which you can actually perform these kind of attacks on latest operating systems. Whereas I am not going to recommend it to you to purchase any of those things. Maybe they are genuine? I don't know that, but chances are you'll be scammed most of the time. Okay, so that thing is outdated. Of course, I'll demonstrate it, but the chances of a successful attack totally depends on how old the phone is. Older version of iOS. So this is an Android based attack. Okay. All right. Next thing that we are going to use is we are going to take advantage of Campish utility, where I'll show you how we can grab hold of the front camera of a mobile device. So this will work on latest versions of Android as well. Okay. So we'll be sharing a link with the target. The target should click on the link and click on allow button, of course. Then only you'll be grabbing selfies from their front camera. Of course, this particular module and all the modules from module number 16 are not a standalone modules. You will be utilizing the knowledge that you have gained from the earlier modules. So creating a payload, creating a malware, which is nothing but using MSFNM, which we discussed in module number 7, using Metasploit framework, okay, which we learned in module number 6. Again, sending a link to the target and making them click on that link, social engineering. So we are combining all the knowledge, all the things that we have learned earlier, and we are revising those things in these modules, if you have observed carefully. So with that thing, we'll wrap up that module and we'll move on to IoT hacking. So in this particular module, we'll be focusing on Internet of Things. Any device that can be connected to internet and can share some information via internet is considered as a IoT device. So most of these IoT devices comes with Raspberry Pi operating system. So as you can see here on my, once again, VirtualBox Manager, I have Raspberry device operating system installed. So I'll make you do the same thing, the installation of Raspberry operating system and setup of Raspberry operating system. And once you are done with the setup, I'll make sure that this setup is done in such a way that most of the devices are going with default settings. So we'll go with the default settings as well. And we'll see misconfiguration based attacks in this particular module. If there are certain misconfigurations, how to take advantage of it. Once we are done with that, we'll move on into module number 19, cloud computing. So before I jump on into these things, can someone tell me what is cloud? Server? Online server? Yes? Yeah, of course. Anyone else? What is a cloud? People online? All right, it's fine. I think you can think of a common cloud platform. Pardon? OS. Amazon. Yes. That is one cloud platform. I'm not asking you to think in a deeper way. Let's cut it down. In our day-to-day life, what sort of cloud platforms that we are using? Google Photos, Google Drive. Yes. What else? Netflix. It is also a cloud platform, right? Amazon, Hotstar, YouTube, right? So anything that is hosted on a different computer, okay, and using the internet, if you are using, you are able to access that one, is considered as a cloud service. Okay. So again, what we talked is cloud storage earlier. Of course, that is one part of cloud computing. Whereas, let's say you are using some services, a platform, or else a device somewhere out there on the internet, using internet in your device is considered as cloud computing. A simple definition to put it in that way. Now, in this module, we'll see how we can set up our own cloud platform using own cloud. This one, okay. So you can get the same software from internet as well. Own cloud. So we'll set this particular own cloud in our VirtualBox Manager. Once we are done with that, Again, we'll perform cloud-based attacks in this module. So again, we'll be performing session hijacking attacks. That's one that you have discussed earlier. Okay, so we'll be performing social engineering attacks in this module as well. I'll be demonstrating man-in-the-middle attacks. Okay, so again, it is a wrap, we could say. Anything that we have learned earlier, we are using the same knowledge, same techniques in the further modules as well. Okay, so no matter what sort of cloud platform it is, most of these attacks could be used in the same environment as well. So this is just to give you an idea that even if it is a cloud platform, the attacks could happen. Okay. So once we are done with discussing and demonstrating the cloud-based attacks, finally, we'll jump on into cryptography. So to put it in a simple way, cryptography is an art of storing in your information in a secured fashion. Okay. So in this particular module, we'll be doing three things. One is encryption, whereas in encryption, I'll be utilizing VeraCrypt to demonstrate encryption. So we'll be having disks in our computer, right? C drive, D drive, E drive, etc., etc. So using this VeraCrypt, we'll see how we can encrypt our disks. Also, I'll create a fake storage space. So when I say fake, to any normal person, it will look like a normal text file or image file, something like that. Whereas inside that, there will be a hidden volume. So we'll see how to create such hidden volumes using VeraCrypt. Coming to hashing. Let me go to my Kali. So let's say again, don't worry about the commands that I am entering here. So this hello is a plain text character, whereas when I passed it to a hashing algorithm, it became this particular string. Now, let me do the same thing, but this time I'll make a minor change, capital H, that's it. Can you see the difference in the strings, the one that is up and the one that is in the bottom? So they are not matching anywhere. Okay, so this is called hashing. So even in organizations or even any social media platforms where you are entering your username, password, and other credentials, those things will be stored in this fashion, not in a plain text fashion. Of course, they will not be using MD5. They'll be using some other algorithms or combination of algorithms, or they'll be using something else called salting. So we'll be discussing these hashing techniques and we'll be seeing how our information can be secure. Okay. Now, once we are done with this one, we'll be finally moving on to steganography. Steganography is an art of hiding our information in an image file or a sound file, something like that. So let me give you a simple demonstration here itself. Don't worry about the commands that I am going to type. Here I have two files. One is a Kali image file, okay, a Kali logo, and I have a text file. So this contains a password. Let's say a password. Okay. Now I don't want this particular information to be stored on my desktop like this. I want to make sure it is stored in a safe fashion, safer way. Now, for that purpose, it is asking for a passphrase. I'll enter it. Done. Now, I'll delete this file. Once again, I'll head back to my terminal. Before that, let me show you this one. It is just an image file. Whereas here, I have embedded this particular secret.txt inside this kali.image JPG. For a normal eye, for a person who doesn't know anything about steganography, they'll think that it is a normal image file. Whereas if I want to get back that information, or let's say I want to share this image file to someone else. Okay. Let's say for that purpose, I'm using a pen drive. I'm putting this particular image in a pen drive and I'm passing that pen drive to that person. Maybe chances are someone else might come across this particular pen drive. Even then, they'll not know what is the secret information behind that. Whereas the person who actually knows the technique to uncover this particular secret, they'll do something like this. It is asking for a passphrase, which I'll share, of course, with my target. Okay, the data is extracted and it is stored inside secret.txt and the information is intact. Okay, so that is how you'll perform steganography. In class, not only this technique, I'll show you one more technique using deep sound, how to hide your information behind an audio file. Okay, so with that thing said, we'll wrap up this cryptography module. And before I jump on into the question and answer session, I want to share a few things with you. So those who are planning to attend to this particular course, make sure you are carrying the following things with you. A laptop, of course. And if you are unable to carry a laptop, we'll provide a system for you here. But my suggestion is bring your own device so that you can practice it whenever you get a chance. And make sure the device that you're carrying has a 6 GB of RAM, that is bare minimum, whereas the recommended is 8 GB. And make sure it is above Intel i3 8th generation processor. And make sure you're having a minimum of 100 GB free storage space, because we'll be installing multiple operating systems and other files. So make sure it is you're having 100 GB disk space. And the people who are attending from their home, okay, online, make sure you are having a good internet speed so that you'll not have buffering and all. Okay. Apart from that, from our hacker schools end, we'll be sharing recorded lectures with you after every session. So you'll be having access to these recorded sessions for 1 year, starting from the date of your course. And within this 1 year, you can also download the session. Okay, you can also download the recorded sessions. One more thing is we'll be sharing the materials with you based on the modules, individual modules. We'll be sharing theoretical part as well as practical part. So that practical part will contain the practicals with screenshots as well, so that you can just watch them and you can perform whenever you are feeling to practice. Next thing that we are going to give from our side is Discord support. So Hacker School has a channel on Discord platform. I don't know if you are aware of Discord. I'll show you how to install it and join to this particular channel. So in this particular Discord channel, you'll be given access to this CEH section. Here it is, CH. So in this CH section, there will be your fellow attendees as well as attendees from previous batches. So here you can share your queries. If you have any doubts, let's see if anyone have shared any queries lately. So one guy posted a screenshot. Let's see. So mostly discussions will happen, and some people will post screenshots if they are stuck at anywhere of their practice. You can ask doubts here. People from our side, our support staff will help you. Also, your fellow attendees. It is kind of a medium for you to interact with like-minded people. Okay. So anyone who is willing to share any good information regarding cybersecurity related things, or if you have any tasks, or if you have any challenges, anything could be shared in this particular CH section. Apart from that, we have job alert section where we'll be posting latest jobs time to time. So one can access this section of Discord and check what are the latest jobs that are available. So we'll be posting fresher jobs also here. Again, these jobs that we are posting here are not associated with Hacker School. We'll be surfing job portals and we'll be bringing out if we find anything genuine, we'll be posting those things here. Okay, so this will reduce the efforts that you have to put from your side in order to search for jobs. Okay, so apart from that, we'll be giving you sample resumes so that you can tailor your resume and you can build your personalized resume. Also, from my side, I'll be there in the class. Also, we'll be having a support staff who will be assisting you with any technical difficulties for both people online and offline. Okay, so I hope that thing is clear. And one last thing that I want to share before giving you opportunity to speak up is if anyone is planning to attend this session, I mean, either offline or online, make sure you are registering with our team as soon as possible because the slots are limited offline and online. I don't know exactly, but I think we can manage online. But who are trying to attend from offline, make sure you are registering with our team. So if you are willing to come here to the offline session, or if you want to register by coming in person, you can come to our office starting from Monday to Saturday. So Sunday is a holiday. Okay. So between 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., you can come anywhere in this particular time interval and you can register yourself for this course. Also, if you are unable to reach out to the offline, I mean, to the premises, you can call our numbers that are provided in the website.